Oh, my sweet baby.
Aku.
Yes, that's my good baby.
Hmm.
I name you Star. You would shine even if nobody sees your light yet.
Daddy, welcome. I love you.
Go to your mom! She can't take my daughter from me. Star, you need to come home with me. I have come to take you home.
Daddy, it's too late!
The first story I ever heard about myself was not about how beautiful I was. It was about how unwanted I was. My mother told me that when I was born, the room went silent, not because something was wrong, but because I was a girl. My father, Festus, had been holding my mother's hand the entire time. He had kissed her forehead. He had whispered, "You're strong, Diamond. I'm right here." He had told the nurses he was ready to meet his child. But when the doctor smiled and said, "Congratulations, it's a girl," something changed. My mother said his fingers slowly slipped out of hers. He didn't shout. He didn't celebrate. He just stepped back. And when the nurse tried to place me in his arms, he said words that would follow me for the rest of my life. "I don't want to carry her." That was the first gift my father ever gave me. Rejection. My mother named me Star. She said she looked at my tiny face and whispered, "You will shine even if nobody sees your light yet." But my father refused to name me. He refused to touch me. He refused to smile at me in pictures. Growing up, I noticed it before I understood it. When I was 3, I ran toward him after work, my little braids bouncing, holding a crayon drawing that said, "I love you, Daddy." He looked at it. Then he handed it back. "Go to your mother." I thought maybe I had done something wrong. At 5, I asked him why he never carried me on his shoulders like the other fathers in the park. He said, "Girls don't need all that. You will leave this house one day. Why should I invest too much?" Invest. That word confused me. Was I a business deal? When I was 6, my mother got pregnant again. That was the first time I saw my father pray loudly in the living room. "God, give me sons." When my twin brothers were born, Harry and Henry, the hospital room exploded with joy. My father cried. He held them high in the air. He called relatives. He slaughtered a goat. He named them before my mother even recovered from surgery. I stood by the hospital bed holding my mother's hand while she stroked my hair. I asked her quietly, "Was Daddy this happy when I was born?" She didn't answer. She just kissed my forehead and said, "You are more than enough." But I saw the sadness in her eyes. As we grew, the difference became louder. Harry and Henry had new clothes every month. They had toys. They had birthday parties with bouncing castles. When I turned 8, my father forgot my birthday. When I reminded him, he said, "Why are you making noise? Girls shouldn't be loud." Harry and Henry were enrolled in the best private school in our area. I was told I would attend a small public school until one evening, my father changed his mind completely. He was sitting at the dining table when my mother brought up my school admission. "She's very intelligent," my mother said gently. "Her teacher says she has exceptional potential." My father didn't even look at me. "Waste of money," he said. "She is your daughter," my mother insisted. "She will marry and answer another man's name. Why should I train her for another family? Girls belong in the kitchen, not in lecture halls." That was the first time I felt anger instead of confusion. I was 9, and I already understood that in my father's eyes, I was temporary, replaceable, unworthy of investment. That night, I cried silently into my pillow so my brothers wouldn't hear me. But my mother heard. She always heard. She came into my room, sat beside me, and wiped my tears. "You are not less," she whispered. "Your father's thinking is small. Not you." "Then why doesn't he love me?" I asked. She closed her eyes before answering. Sometimes people only love what feeds their ego. I didn't fully understand what she meant, but I knew something was broken in our house. As my brothers grew older, my father trained them personally. He taught them how to shake hands firmly, how to speak boldly, how to be men. Me? I was taught how to cook, how to sweep quietly, how to serve food without speaking unless spoken to. but something inside me refused to shrink. I loved books. I loved science. I loved standing in front of the mirror and pretending I was speaking to a crowd. I loved singing in the bathroom when nobody could hear me. It was the only place my voice felt free. One evening, I overheard my father telling a friend, "My sons will carry my legacy. The girl? She is just passing through." Passing through, like a visitor in my own home. That night, I made a promise to myself. If I was just passing through, then I would pass through loudly. I would leave footprints too big to ignore. But I didn't know how to go about that. My mother would not allow me to work to save money for my school at this age. My father would let me work, but would never let me go against his rule by training myself to school, not in his house. But I didn't know my mother had been saving money secretly. She had been working extra hours, enduring my father's cold silence, all because of me. My mother was the only one who truly loved and cared about me. My mom was so bold and courageous. She would never treat her children differently. The night everything broke open, it started with a report card. I was 10 years old when my teacher had written in bold red ink, "Star is exceptionally gifted. She needs advanced academic support." I had hidden the paper in my school bag for 2 days because I didn't know if it would make my father proud or angry. When my mother found it while folding my uniform, she gasped. Not because she was surprised, but because she was happy and proud of me. That evening, she placed the report card gently in front of my father at the dining table. He was feeding Harry and Henry pieces of meat from his plate. "What is this?" he asked without looking up. "Your daughter's result," my mother replied calmly. He glanced at it. Then his jaw tightened. "She scored higher than both boys," my mother continued. "Her teacher says she needs better schooling." My father leaned back slowly. And we should enroll her in the same private school as her brothers." The air became thick. Harry and Henry kept eating, unaware they were sitting in the middle of a battlefield. My father folded the paper once, then twice. Then he placed it back on the table as if it was trash.
No.
That was it.
No explanation.
My mother inhaled deeply. I could see her hands trembling, but her voice remained steady. "She deserves the same opportunity. She deserves a husband," my father snapped. "Not a degree." I felt my face burn. "I am not paying expensive fees for a girl who will change her surname," he continued. "My sons will carry my name. She will not." There it was again.
Name.
Legacy. Investment. As if I was a bad business decision. My mother's eyes changed that night. Something inside her hardened. "Your sons will carry your name," she said quietly. "But your daughter will carry your blood." "Does that mean nothing?" "It means she will belong to another man," he replied coldly. I stood up from the table, without permission. "I want to be a doctor," I said. The room froze. It was the first time I had ever spoken against him. My father turned slowly toward me. "Who asked you to talk?" I swallowed. "No one." "Then learn to stay in your place." My mother rose from her seat. "She is not a piece of furniture, Festus." "Then teach her manners," he barked. My father looked directly at me and said, "If you were a boy, this conversation would not exist." It felt like a slap. I ran to my room, not crying this time, so angry. For the first time in my life, I didn't want his approval anymore. I wanted freedom. That night, I heard shouting through the walls. My mother and father arguing for hours. "I will not watch you bury her future," my mother shouted. "And I will not waste my money," he replied. Then something heavy crashed. Glass breaking. My brothers began crying. I sat in the dark, hugging my knees, listening to my childhood splitting apart. The next morning, my mother woke me early. "Get dressed," she whispered. "Why?" "We're going somewhere." She drove me to the private school, the same one my brothers attended. She filled out the forms. She paid the first installment, with her own savings. When we returned home that evening, my father was waiting. He already knew. "Did you enroll her?" he asked. "Yes." His laugh was not normal. It was low, dangerous. "You think you can disrespect me in my own house? She is my child too. You went against my rules. She is not your property." The argument grew louder than before. Then my father said something that made the ground beneath me disappear. If you want to train her so badly, then do it alone. My mother stared at him. Are you threatening divorce? I am giving you a choice. And if I choose my daughter, then leave. There are moments in life when time slows down. This was one of them. My mother looked at me, then at my brothers, then back at my father. And she said words that would redefine my life. I choose my daughter. The house went silent. My father's pride could not bend. Then pack your things, he said. Within 2 weeks, divorce papers were filed. My father signed quickly, but when it came to custody, he refused to let my brothers go. They are my heirs. My mother fought, but the law sided with stability. We were separated. I moved into a small apartment with my mother. Not luxury, not big, no servant, just the two of us. It's 2 bedrooms. I cried the first night without my brothers. I loved them, even if they were favored. My mother held me. Did I destroy our family? I asked. No, she said. It's better this way, for your future. But Daddy hates me. He hates the idea of a daughter who refuses to shrink. Life became harder. She worked double shifts. I studied under dim lights. But something changed inside me. Without my father's shadow, my mind felt lighter. Still, I wondered about my brothers. Were they being taught that I was the enemy? That girls who speak up destroy homes? Meanwhile, my father's pride grew louder. He told relatives my mother had disrespected him, that she had become too Western, that she was poisoning me with ambition. But he didn't know my mother saw potential in me he didn't see. My mother had bought me a small second-hand phone. Use it wisely, she said. That phone would become the doorway to a world your father never imagined. This same phone can destroy and can always change your life. So use it wisely if you want to be successful in life. You need to prove to your father that you are not a waste product like he said. Thank you very much, Mummy. Thanks for believing in me. I promise not to fail, I said. The phone was not new. It had scratches on the back and a tiny crack across the corner of the screen. But to me, it felt like a door. My mother handed it to me one evening after work. Her uniform still smelled like disinfectant and exhaustion. I can't give you much, she said softly, but I can give you a chance. I held it like something sacred. What will I do with it? I asked. She smiled. Show the world who you are. At first, I didn't understand what she meant. Then she created a social media account for me. She chose the username, Star Rising. You don't need your father's name to shine, she whispered. That night, I recorded my first video in our tiny living room.
No fancy microphone.
No background lights. Just me standing in front of a plain cream wall, wearing my school uniform, heart pounding so hard I thought the camera would hear it. I almost deleted it. What if people laugh? I asked. My mother adjusted the phone on the small stool. Let them laugh, she said. They don't know your story. You know where you're coming from. You don't have to listen to negative comments.
So I sang.
I sang like the walls weren't listening. I sang like my father's voice wasn't in my head telling me to stay small. I sang until my chest felt open. We uploaded it. And then we waited. Nothing happened that night. But something inside me felt alive. For the first time, my voice existed. Over the next few weeks, I kept posting. After homework. After chores. After my mother came home from work and nodded approval. Sometimes the comments were kind. You have a beautiful tone. Don't stop singing. Other times they were cruel. You look too serious. You'll never make it. But the cruel comments didn't hurt as much as my father's silence used to. Because at least strangers were listening. Then one evening, everything changed. I had just finished singing a cover of a gospel song my mother loved. We uploaded it like usual. The next morning, my phone wouldn't stop vibrating. Notifications.
Mention. Shares.
My video had been reposted by a small music page. By afternoon, it had over 20,000 views. By evening, 100,000. I sat on the edge of our old sofa staring at the numbers rising. My hands were shaking. Mom, I whispered. She came running from the kitchen. What happened? I think people are listening. She looked at the screen and covered her mouth. For the first time since the divorce, I saw tears of joy in her eyes. This is just the beginning, she said. Within weeks, messages started coming in. Small brands asking for collaborations. Local event organizers asking me to perform. Nothing huge, but enough. Enough to pay part of our rent. Enough to buy my own textbooks. Enough to lighten my mother's burden. And somewhere across town, my father heard about it. I found out from my aunt. She saw your video, she told my mother over the phone. Your ex-husband is not happy. Not happy. That made me laugh. For years, he had been unhappy that I existed. Now he was unhappy that other people celebrated with me. He says you are exposing the family, my aunt continued. Exposing what? My mother asked calmly. That you are training her to disrespect him publicly. I wasn't disrespecting him. I wasn't mentioning him. I was just singing. But in his mind, my independence was rebellion. My success was betrayal. Meanwhile, my brothers were changing. I saw them occasionally during supervised visits. Harry had become louder. Henry became more withdrawn. They wore expensive sneakers. They talked about parties. About girls. About how Dad says men must enjoy life. When I asked about school, they shrugged. It's boring, Harry said. Dad says we don't need to stress too much. We'll take over his business. I felt something heavy settle in my chest. They were being handed confidence without discipline, privilege without pressure. And me? I was building myself brick by brick. One evening, after one of my performances at a small youth event, I saw him, standing at the back. My father, Festus. He didn't clap. He didn't smile. He just watched. When I finished singing, applause filled the hall. But all I could see was him, his jaw tight, his eyes unreadable. He left before I could approach him. Later that night, my mother received a call. You think because she is trending, she is something? My father's voice roared through the speaker. She is something, my mother replied calmly. She always was. She is still my daughter. You rejected her. I did not reject her. I disciplined reality. Reality. That word burned. She is embarrassing me, he continued. By succeeding? My mother asked. You turned her against me. No, she said softly. You turned yourself away. He hung up. I sat in silence afterward. Part of me still wanted him to say he was proud. Even after everything. That little girl who once ran with a crayon drawing still lived inside me. But I was learning something painful. Some parents would rather be right than be loving. My platform kept growing. Music producers began reaching out. A scholarship foundation noticed my academic records alongside my online presence. They invited me for an interview. When I walked into that office, I remembered my father saying, "Girls belong in the kitchen." I smiled politely and answered every question with calm confidence. A month later, I received the email. Full academic scholarship.
Period.
I screamed so loud the neighbors knocked on our door. My mother fell to her knees, thanking God. But across town, my father's pride was cracking. Because the daughter he refused to invest in was now receiving investments from the world. And pride, when threatened, does not die quietly. It fights back. The day I received my university admission letter, I didn't scream this time. I just sat on the edge of my bed and stared at the words. Congratulations. You have been admitted into the College of Medicine. Not just admitted. Fully funded. Tuition covered. Books covered. Accommodation covered. I ran my fingers over the paper like it might disappear. My mother stood at the doorway watching me. You did it, she whispered. No, I said, my voice shaking. We did. Because every late night she worked, every insult she endured, every time she stood between me and my father's anger. That letter belonged to her too. When I moved into the dormitory, I felt two things at once. Freedom and grief. Freedom because no one there knew me as the unwanted daughter. Grief because part of me still wished my father would show up unexpectedly and say, I was wrong. But he didn't. Instead, I started hearing stories. Harry had been suspended from school for fighting. Henry had failed 2 subjects. My father brushed it off. They are boys, he reportedly told relatives. Boys make mistakes. If I had scored 1 bad grade growing up, it would have been proof that girls shouldn't be educated. But for my brothers, failure was temporary. For me, excellence had to be permanent. Boys are allowed to fall. Girls must fly perfectly. In university, I studied like my life depended on it. Because it did. Medicine was not easy. There were nights I cried over anatomy textbooks. Nights I questioned if I could cope with school because it's not easy. But every time doubt crept in, I remembered my father's words. Waste of money. I refused to become that prophecy. Meanwhile, my online presence kept growing. I didn't abandon music. I posted less frequently, but when I did, people listened. My following crossed 1 million. Brands began offering serious money. Not survival money. Transformation money. For the first time, I paid our full rent without my mother contributing a single naira. I bought her a new refrigerator, a washing machine, small things that made her life easier. When I handed her the keys to a slightly used car, she cried like she had when I was born. You were never a burden, she told me. But across town, things were not going well. My father's business began struggling. He had expanded too quickly, trusted the wrong partners, and pride prevented him from asking for help. Harry dropped out of school. Henry started spending nights away from home. Police warnings began. Nothing too serious yet, but enough to whisper. Relatives began comparing between us. Have you seen Star's achievements? Her mother raised her well. That last sentence hurt him the most, because it meant he had failed as a father. One afternoon during my 3rd year, my mother called me. Her voice was tight. He has filed a case. Who? Your father. What case? I asked. He says I manipulated you. That I poisoned your mind against him. I felt my chest tighten. He's suing for parental alienation. Alienation. That word felt absurd. He alienated himself the day he refused to hold me. But pride does not accept blame. It redirects it. The court date was set. I stood outside the courthouse weeks later, wearing a simple black dress. My father avoided my eyes. He looked older, thinner, but his posture was still stiff with ego. Inside, his lawyer argued that my mother had strategically removed me from his influence, that she had encouraged rebellion, that she had used my online fame to humiliate him. When it was my mother's turn to speak, she didn't raise her voice. She just told the truth. He refused to name my daughter when she was little. I was the one who carried her and named her Star. I blessed her when he refused to hold her. He refused to educate her. He treated her bad enough to feel timid and go into depression. He said girls do not deserve investment. I work hard enough to train her to this level. I know the importance of children being well trained and educated. I chose my child. When he asked me to choose, they refused to let me take my sons with me. So, I left with Star alone. He never called, nor asked about us. Now he sees that my daughter is rising, and he wants to claim her. Things don't work that way. He wants to reap where he didn't sow. I would never allow him take my daughter away under my nose. What an heartless man. Madam, it's okay. I feel your pain, the judge said. The judge turned to me. Do you feel alienated from your father? I looked at Festus for the first time that day. Really looked at him. The man who once held my mother's hand in a hospital room. The man who celebrated my brothers with fireworks. The man who told me I was temporary. No, I said calmly. I feel rejected. The courtroom went quiet. I was never taken away from him. He stepped away from me. My father's jaw tightened. But he had no evidence to contradict lived experience. The case was dismissed. My mother won. Outside the courthouse, reporters approached. Star, what would you like to say? I looked directly into the camera. Educate your daughters. That clip went viral faster than any song I had ever posted. And that was when my father's pride finally cracked into something darker. He stopped trying to win legally. He started trying to win emotionally. He began calling me directly. At first, I didn't answer. Then one evening, I did. You think you are bigger than your father now? He asked. I think I am grown, I replied. You belong to this family. I always did. You will come back. I am not a property to share. I choose my mother over and over again. His breathing grew heavier. You owe me respect. I owed you love, I said quietly. You owed me acceptance. He hung up, but it didn't stop. The calls became more frequent, then threatening. You are nothing without my blood. You are disgracing me. You will regret this. My mother wanted to report him. I resisted at first, because some part of me still hoped he would soften. But when he showed up outside our apartment one night shouting, I knew hope was no longer protection. The night my father was arrested, the air smelled like rain. I remember that detail because it felt symbolic, like the sky itself was tired of holding things in. He had been calling all week. Blocked numbers, voicemails, messages that shifted from demanding to pleading to threatening. You are my daughter. You cannot erase me. I made you. I can also unmake your peace. At first, I ignored them. I told myself he was just hurt, just proud, just struggling. But pain does not excuse intimidation. That night, I was home for the weekend. My mother and I were eating dinner when we heard the banging. Not knocking, banging. The kind that makes your stomach drop. Open this door, his voice roared from outside. My mother froze. I felt something strange inside me. He kept shouting. You think you can lock me out of my own child's life? Neighbors began opening their doors. Whispers in the hallway. My mother reached for her phone with shaking hands. Don't, I said softly. She looked at me. He won't stop. I walked to the door, but didn't open it. Dad. I called through the wood. Then heavy breathing. You need to leave. This is because of your mother, he shouted. She turned you into this. No, I said calmly. You did. He began pushing the door violently. That was the moment something inside me closed permanently. I dialed the police. When they arrived, he tried to laugh it off. Family misunderstanding. But the officers had heard enough from the neighbors. When they placed handcuffs on him, he looked at me, not angry,
Shocked.
as if he truly believed I would never choose myself over him. I am your father, he said quietly. And I am your daughter, I replied. Not your possession. They led him away. I didn't cry. That little girl, who once begged for his attention, would have cried. But I was no longer her. The restraining order came quickly after that. He was warned to stay away. And for the first time in my life, there was silence. The protective silence of boundaries. Meanwhile, my brothers were unraveling. Harry got involved with the wrong crowd. Street racing. Late-night parties. Easy money schemes. Henry followed quietly behind him. My father tried to control them the only way he knew how, with authority. But he had never taught them accountability. He had only taught them entitlement. One night, Harry was arrested for reckless driving and possession of illegal substances. Nothing catastrophic, but serious enough to stain records. My father paid for lawyers, paid for silence, paid for image repair. But money cannot buy discipline that was never planted. Watched all of this from a distance, not with satisfaction, with sadness. Because gender favoritism doesn't just hurt daughters. It cripples sons. By my final year in medical school, my life looked nothing like the one my father predicted. I graduated top of my class. When I walked across the stage to receive my degree, the auditorium roared. My mother stood in the front row, hands shaking as she clapped. I scanned the crowd for a split second. He wasn't there. And that was okay. After graduation, my online platform expanded into health advocacy. I used my voice not just to sing, but to educate. Young girls messaged me daily. My dad says girls don't need school. Your story gives me hope. That was when I understood something powerful. My pain had become permission for others to dream. Within 2 years of practicing medicine and continuing strategic brand partnerships, I made more money than I ever imagined. Not flashy overnight wealth. Sustained growth. Smart investments. One afternoon, I took my mother for a drive. She thought we were visiting a client. Instead, we pulled up in front of a gated property. White walls, wide windows, garden trimmed perfectly. She looked confused. Why are we here? I handed her the keys. This is your house. She stared at me. Star, you chose me, I said softly. Let me choose you back. She cried the way mothers cry when sacrifice finally breathes. I bought her 2 cars, one practical, one luxurious. Not to show off, but to restore dignity. Meanwhile, my father heard about the mansion. He heard about the cars. He heard about interviews calling me self-made. That phrase pierced him, because in his mind, he had created me. He didn't see that biology is not the same as belief. He tried one last time. He showed up at the hospital where I worked. Not shouting. Not angry. Just older. Smaller. Can we talk? He asked. We sat in a quiet corner. For the first time, there was no pride in his posture. I made mistakes, he said. It was the closest he had ever come to an apology. You didn't just make mistakes, I replied gently. You made choices. He looked down. I thought I was protecting my legacy. You were protecting your ego. Silence stretched between us. I am still your father, he said. Yes, I agreed. But that does not give you ownership. He swallowed hard. I wish I could go back. I felt something soften in me. Not forgiveness, but understanding. You can't, I said. But you can do better with what's left. He nodded slowly. But regret is a heavy companion. And time does not reverse for pride. As he walked away that day, I realized something heartbreaking. Sometimes people change. But they change after they have already lost everything. Success is loud. Regret is quiet. I didn't see my father again for almost a year after our conversation at the hospital. But I heard about him. You always hear about men who build their identity on pride. Because when pride collapses, it does not fall silently. It echoes. Harry's second arrest was not something money could easily sweep away. This time it involved fraud. Fast cash. The kind of shortcuts that grow in homes where character is never deeply planted. When I heard the news, I felt inevitability. My father had raised them to believe they were entitled to success. He had not raised them to earn it. Henry, on the other hand, had withdrawn completely. Failed business attempts funded by their father. 2 sons he once called his legacy were now his greatest fear. And I wondered, not with bitterness, but with painful honesty, if I had been a son, would I have been allowed to fail too? Or was I forced to become exceptional because I was unwanted? One evening, my phone rang. It was Henry. His voice was quiet. Can we talk? Talk about what exactly? Henry, is this how you want to live your life? Disgracing the many name? Please let meet and talk better, he said. We met at a small cafe. He looked tired, older than his age. I'm sorry, he said when we had opposite as I looked at him without saying a word. For what? For believing in him. I didn't understand. He used to tell us you were ungrateful. That Mum poisoned you. That you were proud. I thought you hated us. I never hated you, I said softly. I hated what divided us. Henry stared at his coffee. I think he's breaking. That word lingered. Breaking. Men like my father don't cry in public. They break internally. A few weeks later, I received a message I didn't expect. It wasn't from him. It was from one of his old friends. He's not doing well. I drove to his house, the same house where I once felt temporary. It looked smaller now. The paint peeling. The garden unkept. When he opened the door, I saw it immediately. Loneliness. He had aged beyond his years. Why are you here? He asked quietly. Because someone should be. He stepped aside and let me in. The house felt hollow. Just television murmuring in the background. Harry doesn't visit, he admitted after a long silence. Henry tries, but he avoids me. I sat across from him. Why do you think that is? He didn't answer immediately. Then he said something that almost shattered me. I don't know how to love without controlling. There it was. The confession hidden under decades of ego. I thought being a man meant leading, demanding, providing. I didn't know it also meant listening. You never listened to me, I said. I was afraid. Of what? That if I gave you too much power, I would lose mine. I almost laughed at the irony. He lost everything trying not to lose authority. You didn't lose power because of me, I said gently. You lost connection. Silence filled the space between us. He looked around his living room. I built all this for my sons. And forgot your daughter, I added softly. He nodded. I thought you would leave anyway. You pushed me out before I could choose. Tears formed in his eyes. Real tears. I am proud of you, he said finally. It was the first time he had ever said those words. And strangely, they didn't heal me. Because healing is not built from late recognition. It is built from consistent love. I needed that when I was 8. I replied quietly. He closed his eyes. I know. That was the tragedy. He knew. But knowing does not rewrite history. As I left his house that night, I felt something I hadn't felt before.
Peace.
Not because everything was fixed, but because I no longer needed him to change in order to move forward. One courageous decision can interrupt generations of damage. My mother made that decision, and I lived it. If you're listening to my story and you're a father, look at your daughter differently tonight. If you are a mother fighting alone, you're not crazy. You are courageous. If you are a girl who feels unseen, you are not temporary. You are not a waste. You are not an investment loss. You are possibility. And possibility does not have a gender. My name is Star. He refused to name me, but the world did. And I chose my own legacy. Thanks for watching Echoes in Silent Story. Like, subscribe, and comment where you are watching from.